Welcome to the West Coast Clouds podcast. This is Nick, your host. This is the new vape podcast for vapors, where we bring you opinions, reviews, and industry news. You're listening to West Coast Clouds. Welcome back to another episode of West Coast Clouds podcast, guys. This is episode 2, and today we've got a pretty heavy hot end topic that extends off of a previous episode, which was episode 1. This is focusing on the salt nicotine revolution and the current power that Juul and Altria have over how the next regulations will come into play. So here's some of the facts. Here's some of the things that we can ingest that are true, that have happened. We know that Juul has sold 35% of its company to Altria, right? They can influence how Juul is going to make choices, how they're going to take their direction of things, right? So in a recent publication that we've been seeing circulating around the Facebook groups here, it clearly shows that Altria is encouraging a flavor ban as a solution to the youth vaping issues. But it makes you think, if this is indeed the direction, Juul and Altria stand to gain even more power and potentially an entire industry grab. Like, if such a ban were to go through, it would actually increase their power already. Now, keep in mind, this is the FDA we're talking about, not Health Canada. But, you know, with such power, it's kind of unclear to see how that's going to unfold next. Okay, so it says here in the PDF, further Altria actions to address youth epidemic. Encourage FDA to take industry-wide actions by banning retail and vape store sales of all non-traditional flavors until the youth issue is addressed. What? Such as by the use of advanced age verification technology or pre-market authorization. So they're saying until this age verification can be solidified, which sounds like they have another product up their sleeve, that they should ban non-traditional flavors. So first thing I want to say is, until the youth issue is addressed, isn't that what the 19 plus legal age limit is for? So you're telling me that vaping needs more regulations than any other market? More than underage drinkers? More than cannabis use? Like, what's happening behind closed doors here that we're not being told about? This is all we're seeing, right? So, I mean, you got to look at it too. We're going to look at it from all sides here. On the opposite side of this, it is fair to say that until Altria were to own 51% or more of the company, Juul is still the biggest and most successful vape company. And because of this, obviously, they're going to be targets of the government watchdogs. So perhaps that's their own fault by pushing all of these products into C-stores. However you look at it, it's a bit worrisome, right? I mean, such a suggestion being made by these huge giants, if that flavor ban were to happen, the biggest impact and threat is all of the specialty vape shops and ultimately the customers who go to these shops. So, I mean, does that mean it's in our best interest to kill the high salt nicotines by creating these limits that we're talking about? Or would that be enough to stop Juul? Would that stop them from spreading the salt nic from C-store to C-store, right? So, or does it even make a difference? I don't know. The best option we can see right now that's on the table, though, is creating new restrictions and regulations for all of these C-stores, limiting where the youth can obtain high nicotine products. Jason Haney actually brought up a good point online. Well, it might not be attainable or even possible, but in theory, it would be great. He said to make possession of vape products illegal for someone that's underage. Give them a fine for just having possession of a vape product if they're underage. I mean, this might make kids a little more nervous to have it with them, and thus allow schools to start giving out fines to kids that have these products. But I mean, the problem is they never did that with cigarettes, so why would they start doing it with vape products? Something else to note in the PDF here is that Altria released a statement that says they are prepared for a menthol flavor ban. This just hints at the fact that they're obviously well prepared for a flavor ban. Well, it appears that they're helping us, but even if things don't work out and there is a flavor ban, there's still no loss for them. For the rest of the industry, though, there is. If the true issue is addressing the youth vaping epidemic, then it's time we look at regulating where you can buy the products, not what you can buy or can't buy. I think we can all agree on that. Jason made a good point that if TEOs did their jobs and started enforcing legislation, fining and shutting down the shops that are selling to these kids, pulling them from gas stations, this epidemic would slowly be managed and dwindle down. Where's the problem really? Is it that no one's really doing their jobs properly? So, here we are trying to figure this shit out. I'm reluctant to try and throw blame at Juul for these particular products, right? Simply due to the fact that the government allowed this thing to happen in the first place. However, it's hard to ignore how much of an advantage that Juul has on the market right now, and how they can easily push in one direction or the other, and then you start to question where their loyalty lies, right? Is it with the industry that exists, or is it with the future of their business, right? I don't know if it can be both. Okay, so we got a couple of guests on today. Our first guest of the episode is Rowan Warhunter from Stinky Canuck, based out of Trenton, Ontario. Rowan, what are your thoughts on the idea of flavor bans, and what are your thoughts on the fact that Juul and Altria are somewhat proposing or okay with the idea of this flavor ban?
Hey, Nicholas. Rowan Warhunter from Stinky Canuck. I think it's a pretty bad idea. We have strong historical evidence to show that prohibition just doesn't work. It's really easy to get flavoring, right? So people are just gonna use flavoring that they can buy at the grocery store or off the internet, off the black market, and that might not be as safe. So it's really a step backwards for regulated industry. As far as Juul and Altria are concerned, I think the more smokers we can get to switch to vaping, the better. Team up with big tobacco to meet the end of tobacco cigarettes. That would be awesome. I'm not convinced that that's their actual goal, and it all still remains to be seen. So at this point, I feel like it's mostly speculation. If Juul and Altria are pushing for flavor bans in Canada, they'll get zero support from me. But as of right now, I think we have to keep an open mind and see how things progress.
Right, absolutely. I mean, we need to be careful not to get too wound up in our emotions and keep a clear head on what we need to do next. The idea of a flavor ban is just a bad idea all around. It really isn't going to benefit anyone, nor will it correct the youth vaping epidemic. It's clear that there's really only one winner right now that survives a flavor ban, and it's not us, it's Juul. There's still a handful of specialty shops that stock and supply Juul, and personally, I'm not convinced that it's necessarily a bad idea. I do see the numerous negative sides to it. They do seem to outweigh the positives, that's for sure, but it's also good practice for me to play devil's advocate on this show and think about how Juul is helping these folks that don't abuse it and choose lower nicotine strengths. Our next guest on here is Josh, aka Darth Vapor. He is a distribution manager of Japellos Vapor. Josh, I know you've got a viewpoint that is a bit more aimed towards the negative impacts of Juul, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. How do you feel about big tobacco being a player in this now? What is your opinion of why all of this happened?
Darth Vapor here. Hey, Nick, thanks for having me on West Coast Clouds. So why did this happen? This happened because big tobacco stood to lose 60% of the market share over the past and the next couple of years. It's no longer cool to smoke. It's cool to vape, and the health risks that are involved with smoking. So it only makes sense that big tobacco gets involved with the biggest vape companies. And I think you're going to see a lot more of this in the future. Big tobacco companies buying vape companies. Why are they asking for a flavor ban? Why does everybody think they're asking for a flavor ban? It's a tactic. It's a tactic to crush our industry, and it's a tactic for them to not only own smoking, but own vaping. And I challenge everybody out there to take a good hard look at who you're doing business with. When I quit smoking and I started vaping, the vape fam and the camaraderie and the connection with so many people just for quitting smoking was unreal for me. It was unreal to the point that, I'm in the industry now as a chef, and I quit all that for this because of the love and how passionate people were. It seems like now we're at a crossroads and we all need to have a look at who we're doing business with. If Juul is obviously stating that they want a flavor ban, I'll tell you why. This is their way of appeasing Health Canada and crushing our industry at the same time. And I'll tell you why I think that. If there was no more flavors and it was down to flavorless and tobacco and let's say menthol, that's all you could get, every shop across Canada would pretty much close. You only need one flavorless, you only need a few things of tobacco and a couple of menthols, really. Every juice company across Canada would pretty much close, because then what are we going to do, guys? We all going to produce a flavorless? No. We all going to produce a tobacco? Maybe. But it's going to be boring. And then vaping is going to taste like shit. One of the big successes of quitting smoking is the flavors. That's why we went after. We know we have to have flavors. We have to get people away from the tobaccos. We have to get people away. So the cotton candies, the cornbreads, the Bodaciously Blue, the Dragon Slayers, all my favorites, the ones that help me quit smoking, are important to me. Now, what they're trying to do is they're trying to crush all that. And why are they trying to crush all that? Because then you either vape what they tell you or you go back to buying cigarettes. Because that's what'll happen. I'll be honest with you, man. If I didn't have the flavors that I enjoy the most, I have one of those. I would probably be smoking again. I'm sure a lot of people that have vaped have kind of fell off the wagon and came back to the wagon, fell off, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, these are people that are trying to crush us, and they'll own it all. They'll own it all. Also, I think it's time for everybody in Canada that owned a vape shop to make a decision. Just because these people are in our industry does not mean that we have to support them. If every person in Canada that sold a Juul and these people, if this is what they're asking, then you need to ask yourself a question. Who do I want to do business with? Do I want to do business with someone that's going to look to close me down, shut me down, undo all the good that we have done? Then stop buying the Juuls. Stop selling them in your shops. If this is what they are seriously proposing, then people need to make a decision, and a hard decision. Unfortunately, the world is run by making money, and money is what people are after. And in my opinion, I would challenge every vape shop. If this is what Juul and this company is deciding to do, then I think everybody should boycott their products. And you know what? Then no longer do they have a say. No longer are they the problem. If they're the problem in our industry, if all of you keep selling this shit, you're selling yourself out of a job, in my opinion. Because they don't care about your shop. They don't care about his shop. They don't care about the industry. Do you know what they care about? They care about making money. Now, Juul as a company only sold off 35%. Doesn't matter. 35%, 10%, 1%. They're in bed with the people that are going to shut down our industry or are trying to dominate our industry. And who the hell are they? They're nobodies. They're new. For all the groundwork that everybody's laid since vaping started till now, we got to fight for this. And I think that people need to have a real hard look at the companies they do business with. Everybody wants to have a problem with all of these juice companies that are appealing to children. And you know what? This is the same thing. This is exactly the same thing on a different plane. They're appealing to children. If Juul is an epidemic that's appealing to children, then what are we doing about it? Stop selling it, because they obviously don't care. If Juuling is a nationwide epidemic, then what are we doing about it? Together, guys, we have to look at it together. Are we part of the problem or are we part of the solution? Being part of the problem is selling the product and letting this company get bigger and bigger and bigger to the point that our say doesn't matter anymore because they have enough money to do whatever the hell they want. Or are we part of the solution saying, you know what? We're not selling your product anymore. We don't like how you do business, and we don't like who you're doing business with. We don't like the fact that you have sold out to a tobacco company. Because tobacco companies don't care. Let's be real about things, guys. They don't care. They know that cigarettes are bad. They know that they have serious health risks, but they continue to sell it. And unfortunately, like I said earlier, you know, the world revolves around money. A lot of people, for the almighty dollar, they'll sell their soul. Well, guys, we're at the point where if you sell your soul anymore, there's going to be none left. And the day that your shop closes as a result of you supporting these companies that are asking for ludicrous things, think about it. They have an agenda. And the agenda, in my opinion, is their own. They don't care what happens because at the end of the day, they're going to sell 1 billion of them. Doesn't matter if they only have 3 flavors available because somebody's going to look at it like, well, I'm juuling already. It doesn't matter. I don't get the mango. I don't get the ice. I get this one instead. What does that do to this? It makes this obsolete. If honest to God, man, if you take flavors away from our industry, we have no industry. The industry's done. That's it. It's over. It's over at the same day they legislate against that. And if Health Canada has such a big deal that they're investigating youth vaping and Juul is the culprit, then we have to ask ourselves, guys, it doesn't matter whether or not our vape shops are responsible and we have that license and we are conducting ourselves the right way. If everybody else around us isn't, and that's the product that we're selling and they're selling and they're selling and it's getting into the hands of children or underagers, it makes us all look bad. So how do you deal with that situation? You remove yourself from it. Any companies that are out there that are selling the high five or the child approving, a lot of people boycotting them. And we want people boycotting them because they're appealing to children. You won't buy that juice, but you'll buy the Juul? Why? Why? Remember, at the end of the day, these people have only one thing in mind. How can we make up the difference from people that used to smoke and now they're vaping? Go to any convenience store. When I made a sales trip to Ottawa, I walked into a 7-Eleven right beside Jay Porpino's shop. And I walked in. was grabbing a drink, and what's on the counter is the Juul in a thing. And I was pissed. I said to the guy, I said, how can this happen? The vape shop across the street has to ID people, 19 to come in, and you're allowed to. And there was children behind me. While I was saying this, I said, you're allowed to display this? This is ridiculous. These people don't care. They don't care. It's like alcohol. I went into the liquor store. I thought you had to be 19 to walk into a liquor store. Anytime I walked into a beer store, I got carded when I was underage. You walk into a liquor store, a woman brings her children in. There's donut flavored vodka. There's birthday cake vodka. There's Hires root beer. There's all these things that are appealing to children. We have to ask ourselves some hard questions as far as I'm concerned with this issue. And I think that it boils down to, what are we going to do as an industry? What are we prepared to do? Do you only care you're selling the Juuls because you make money at it? You don't care that you're selling yourself out of a job? If these people are asking for this stuff, then we all have to go, wow, they have an alternate agenda. And you know what? It has nothing to do with ours. I listened to the CVA board meeting, and Charlie spoke about, what Health Canada is looking for. How are we going to work with them? I think it's important for us to stand together. When there's division, it shows weakness. And weakness is when they go for the throat. So I think we all need to ask ourselves some hard questions. And I challenge everybody that's listening to this, make a stand. Take a stand. Think about long term. Don't think about short term. Think about, what are these people doing to contribute to our industry? What are they doing? Nothing. They care about themselves. And I think that the longer that we do business with people that only care about themselves, you're selling yourself out of a job, guys. One of the biggest things in the industry is about flavors. And if a company is going to be out there soliciting that, we don't need flavors, then you have to ask yourself a few questions. Why would they say that? What do they have to benefit by saying, we don't need flavors? Look at it, guys. They're big enough. They don't need flavors. They need whatever is going to come down the pipe. And they think that this is a responsible way of acting, maybe towards the youth vaping. If we don't have flavors, the kids aren't going to vape, and Juul's not going to get a bad name. Remember something. Good publicity and bad publicity is all good publicity. These people are in the media. These people are being talked about. It only does their company justice. Because at the end of the day, if your shop closes, they're still going to sell 1 million Juuls. They're still going to sell 1 million pods. Why? Because you won't be around. There'll be no competition. Think about that. That's my piece, Nick. I really love the forum you have here. I think we need more of this in the industry. And I think we all need to come together. I think we all need to, have a look at who's fighting the good fight. Are you fighting the good fight, or are you one of those people? Listen, we can't have everything. Everybody wants a whole bunch of different things. What we all have to agree on is some small, short details. What is the most important to us, and how are we going to attack that? And not only how are we going to attack that, but how are we coming together as an industry? We can't fight. We can't argue. There can't be all this, back and forth. We have to work together. If we don't work together and we don't, all put up the same values and the same things that are important to us, then I'm telling you, it's all going to be gone. I won't have a job. You won't have a job. They won't have a job. So yeah, that's my opinion on the flavor ban and how all this is coming into play. I really hope that people reevaluate who they're doing business with. You wouldn't sell a bottle of juice that had Pokemon on it. So why sell a juice that they don't care about what happens to your shop, or they don't care what happens to our industry? They want to own the industry. Anyways, thanks, Nick, for having me on. It was a real pleasure. Everybody have a great day. Darth Vapor's out. May the force be with you. Always.
Thanks, Josh. I mean, I totally understand the mentality of classifying the Juul as a made-for-teens product or child appealing, but I wouldn't go so far to say that a specialty vape shop having the Juul available means that they're supporting child appealing products, when the reality is that there is a huge amount of adult Juul users, right? However, I 100% agree that contributing to the sale of Juuls does put us in a gray area. Most especially if they have alternative goals, right? Like if they're not as pure as we're being led to believe. Next up, I want to welcome welcome Mike Hart to the show. Mike's from VapeMe.net, and he wanted to share his thoughts with us on the subject. Mike, can you tell us a bit more about the upcoming regulations, your stance on the Juul and salt nicotine and the flavor banning issues going on right now?
Hi guys, Mike Hart here from VapeMe.net. The consultation period for the newest round of proposed regulatory changes ends on March 22nd. These regulations will alter the law in regards to vape advertising. The extent of these further restrictions are unknown, but theoretically could impact online sales and social media. Two very important things to our industry. Canada has given themselves the power to revisit the TVPA every couple of years. This means we as the industry can never relax. At any point, a very small change to the TVPA could equal disaster to our unique homespun industry. We've worked so hard to get where we are now, with the constant resistance from any number of opponents. Up until recently, any opposition to our industry has come from outside, various agencies with the unified drive to protect the children. These agencies have giant budgets. They look like the good guys to our own government who, according to the TVPA itself, are primarily concerned with the same thing, protecting the children. Our hands are full. Our industry is already under attack. Then Juul shows up. Juul has released a product not designed for cessation, instead created with the specific goal of delivering as much nicotine as is legally allowed. This is not a product designed to help people quit smoking. While it might have that effect, it's a product designed to deliver enough nicotine to keep a user addicted and addict new users. A product from a $38 billion company that just sold 35% of its stock to its Marlboro's owner, Altria. This is the product detractors to our industry have been looking for. It proves to the people that vaping is harmful to youth. It's hard to argue that a kid vaping 60 milligram won't become addicted to nicotine very quickly. It's also very hard to argue that a nicotine addict isn't more likely to take up smoking. This is precisely the image we've wanted to avoid since the beginning, but now this is the image we're stuck with. All you need to do is read a newspaper or turn on a television. The US is way ahead of us in demonizing vaping, so we can watch our possible future unroll before our very eyes. Altria is working with the FDA. Some of the fun suggestions they have to save the children on the US side are no flavors but tobacco and menthol, no social media, and a minimum age being increased to 21 years old. Funny, none of these concessions affect their bottom line, and from a vapor's perspective, none of them would actually combat youth uptake. There are two things that would guarantee curbing youth uptake: sales of vapor products being restricted to specialty vapor shops alone, ban of salt nicotine. If we wanted to represent ourselves as an industry that cares, these are the things we ourselves should be pushing to the government to consider. Both are hard options, but the alternate option and myriad of restrictions that could be placed on our industry if we don't control it are far worse. The convenience stores would fight tooth and nail to keep vape products. And the salt nic thing, well, that's a different story. Juul relies on high-level salt nic to do what they do. 60 milligram salt nic has little to no throat hit. While yes, it can be used to quit smoking, it can also be used to get high. I know it's ridiculous, the concept of getting high on nicotine, but the kids are stupid. And that's what they're doing. It's happening. And we are being judged because of it. These non-smoker kids are also addicting themselves to an obscenely high amount of nicotine. One of these pods is supposed to be equivalent to 1 pack of smokes, but consuming them rapid fire is fairly easy with the lack of throat hit. Start thinking of these kids as the equivalent of a 3-pack a day smoker. That's the level of nicotine they've grown dependent to, and when opportunity presents itself, it's hard for me to imagine them turning down a cigarette if there's no pods available. Kids didn't and won't get high off of freebase nicotine. It's not even fun to try. However, if we were restricted to only using freebase, we'd still be able to help the smokers quit. There's a restriction currently on the level of nicotine used in e-liquid. It's 66 milligram. With one word, that restriction could put Juul out of business on this side and leave us exactly where we were a couple of years ago, which is to say, still capable of offering the most effective method to quit smoking ever devised. We don't need salt nicotine. Juul does. I manufacture and sell salt nicotine e-liquid myself. I'd be happy to stop using the ingredient if it meant taking back control of our industry. So Mike, this is a US issue, you say. Canada looks at and treats vaping differently over here. Up till now, this has been true, but now the world is focused on Juul. Why shouldn't they be? I assume by the end of the year, 90% of the e-cigs in people's hands will be Juuls. They have the capital to hit the market hard and dominate it. They really already have. We thought we had it bad with the rep we got from kids blowing zero nicotine clouds. That's nothing compared to the optics Juul has. It's a product that's been designed to be treated like tobacco, and it's in Juul's best interest for this to happen. They don't need flavors. They don't need advertising. They don't need mail order. They have the Big Tobacco Handbook to draw their designs for dominance from. When the lawmakers on this side start scratching their heads, wondering why further restrictions on advertising haven't had the desired effect on youth uptake, ask yourself what the further amendments that they might consider might be. They aren't going to leave us alone, especially if we're lumped in with Juul.
Right, it's true. We have to be careful about how we're perceived because we don't want to be lumped in with Juul. We as an industry are technically a whole different industry, in my opinion at least. If the public sees specialty vape shops as a Juul supporter, it could cause some media outlets to get the wrong idea. So to further these thoughts, I've got Ryan Green from Digital Vapor out of Surrey. Ryan, what are your thoughts? You've been in the industry for quite some time now. Can you touch on this subject and what are your suggestions you might have for the industry?
Hey Nick, Ryan here. Thanks for having me on, buddy. So I just wanted to touch on a couple of things real quick. The hot button issues right now, of course, being the Juul, the vaping epidemic amongst teens, and higher milligram nic salts. I've always kind of been outspoken against the higher nicotine nic salts, and I'll tell you why. The reason that I'm against, not necessarily against them, but not a big believer in them, is for one reason, and that's all of the younger 19 to 24 year olds that come into the shop, they're all chasing the nic high, the head high. So I think as an industry, if we want to be serious about the optics of what we're doing, and Health Canada asking us how we're going to help curb the vaping epidemic, is we need to think about maybe putting a cap at even just 24 milligrams. I know that a lot of the manufacturers out there don't agree with that, but I think right now is a time of optics, and if we can show Health Canada that we're serious and that we're going to be proactive in taking steps to curb the youth epidemic, I think that as part of our industry is something that we can show Health Canada. Now on the flip side of that, I've seen a lot of success in my older clientele, the 40 plus clientele who come in and buy a mouth-to-lung device and ask for the higher nicotine, and it's successful for them. So here's the biggest difference between nic salts and something like what Juul's doing. With nic salts, they have their place in our industry. They will continue to provide options for our customers, and they'll continue to keep thousands of us employed. So this is one of the main reasons why I'm not against nic salts. I actually think they have their place. I don't think people necessarily need the higher doses, but that's something that more, like I said, is more of like an optic thing for us as an industry to show Health Canada that we're going to take steps to do what they're asking to help them curb the youth epidemic in vaping. I don't even like the term epidemic because epidemic sounds worse than what's going on. Now, on the flip side, Juul is actively trying to destroy our industry. They're positioning themselves in the States right now with the FDA to try to get the FDA to ban flavors, and they think that's going to be the big cure-all for the youth vaping. Now, what that does is it puts them in a position where they can sell their tobacco pods, and they can continue to sell their tobacco pods and only have that market share. Because let's face it, there's not a lot of tobacco vapors anymore. It's kind of a niche market now. So if their product is the only one on the market, they're going to benefit from that. Now, when they benefit from that, all of us are going to lose our jobs. All of us are going to lose the opportunity to get thousands of smokers off of the cigarettes daily. Because you know what? They're not going to go into a convenience store looking for education. They come into specialty vape stores because they know that 99% of the time we know what we're talking about. We know our products inside and out. We know how to help them. We know how to explain to them the options, the different devices that they have. We're in a convenience store. If they're going to go in there, they're going to go in there and they're going to buy cigarettes. Or, they're not gonna go in there looking for a vape. They're gonna go in there and just say, okay, screw it. There's no vape shops anymore, so I'm just gonna continue smoking. And that's serious. That's serious business. That's thousands of vapors back to smoking. It's going to ensure that Juul continues to only service the vapors that are out there right now. So this is why I think as an industry, we need to stop supporting Juul. Juul came into our shop about a year ago and swore up and down that they were going to work with us, and they wanted to work right alongside of us. Well, what just happened in the in the States recently, with their submission to the FDA pretty much proves the point that they're not here to work with us. They know the market, they want the market, and they're going to shut us down. So my biggest thing right now is I just want shops to think about who we're supporting. Think about every Juul product that's being sold is helping them finish their agenda. And that scares me. It scares me. I've been doing this for 4 years now, and I've seen thousands of people come through my doors and get off of cigarettes and wean themselves down to lower nicotines. And I'd say a good 80% of the time they're not doing it with tobacco flavors. Now, the other thing that I want to briefly touch on is the people out there that say, well, if vape stores weren't around, then youth vaping wouldn't be around. Okay, so 90%, upwards of 90% of underage vape sales don't come from vape shops. They come from convenience stores. They come from gas stations where the person doesn't care about ID. You know what? That Juul is a $70 sale out the door. Who's going to know any better? Where they know that if they come into a vape shop, they're going to get ID'd and they're not going to buy anything from us because they're not going to be allowed in the shop. So we really need to be cognizant to show Health Canada that this is exactly what's happening. It's not the vape shops who are contributing to underage vaping. It's convenience stores. It's products like Juul that have display stands at these convenience stores and have a huge marketing budget to make sure that their name is out there. But when their name's out there, it can be used for good and bad. And that's the scary part. So just yesterday, 2 days ago, there was a story on, I believe it was CTV in Edmonton, talking about how the Alberta government wants to put tighter restrictions on the marketing and advertising of vape products. Well, the first product that they show in their news story in their little reel is Juul. So that's not good. You know, we're being dragged down by a company that is well known, and we're getting lumped into that. And perception is reality, and that's what people forget, is that if the general public thinks that Juul equals vaping and kids vaping is a problem, we all get lumped in with that big Juul bundle, you know? So, I don't know, man. I just think that we need to take a look at this, and we need to get serious now about what's going on. Thanks, bud.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate your time, man, and sharing your opinion with us. Our last guest on the podcast is Simon Stokes, owner of Wild Predator out in Ontario. So let's rewind and start from the beginning. We've covered a lot of things, so Simon's going to I want you to walk us through here. Simon, can you recap what's happened in the last month, and what are your thoughts on the flavor ban and where you stand as a supporter or non-supporter of the Juul in the market?
So the big topic of conversation right now is Juul making a suggestion to the U.S. market about banning flavors in all locations except for basic flavors. I'm going to guess like basic fruits, basic tobaccos, and menthols and stuff like that. Talking about banning them in retail locations and places like that. I don't see Juul being the bad guy on making that suggestion, because in the U.S. market, which is where those things were suggested, not the Canadian market. Canadian market's completely different. Canadian government's handling vaping completely different. In the U.S. market, the government said, hey, guys, we need submissions because there's a youth uptake. Figure it out, give us submissions, and we'll go from there. Now, what happened was the U.S. market, as it typically does, implodes, infights, and destroys itself, and the corporations are not involved with all that because they don't give a fuck about the Facebook infighting. They just put together a proposal and submitted it to the government like they were asked to. Because here's the reality on numbers on that. The Facebook or online vapors are 5%. And then the other 95% have no idea any of this is happening unless they walk into a shop of somebody who likes to educate and talk and all that stuff, and then gets told what's happening in the industry and all that stuff. So the 95% of vapors out there have no idea any of this shit's happening. Let's say 5% actually pay attention to the store clerks when they walk into the retail locations, and those store clerks actually get words out. So 5% of vapors on social media, 5% of the customers. So 90% don't know what the fuck is going on. They have no idea. They walk into the store, they buy their juice, they go home, they don't care. Just like they used to walk into the store, buy their cigarettes, and go home, didn't care. So Juul makes a submission to the U.S. government, the FDA, and now Canada's freaking out about that. I don't like Juul. I'm never going to like Juul. I don't carry Juul in my store. I'm never going to carry Juul in my store. For some reason, they sent me a display stand. I don't know why. It's in the back room. It's in the box. It's never coming out of the box. It can sit there and get dusty for all I care. I'll figure out something to do with it later on. I'll take it home and store screws in it or some shit. I don't know. Canadian market, Canadian government's taking things very, very differently. They asked for submissions, much like the U.S. Half of us went and said, not our problem, you guys figure it out. It is our problem. We have to figure it out. So half of us went, yeah, fuck it, not our problem. Little less than half, the other half just didn't really do anything. Just got involved with the infighting and whatever. And then typically the same advocates who do all the work all the time are doing the work. And people are going, well, nothing's getting done. Fuck Juul. Juul's ruining the industry. It's just not happening. Juul's not trying to kill the industry in Canada. That's just my opinion. Juul showed up with some of the most responsible packaging in the industry, some of the strictest age verifications on their website. So I don't know what else we want from them. They got amazing packaging. They got age restriction on their website. We have age restrictions on our website, and for the most part now, we're getting to responsible packaging. I see people are saying Juul's destroying the industry, but promoting Riot Squad and Candy King. You can't have both. The youth appeal has to do with bottling, packaging, labeling, things like Candy King, things like Riot Squad. If you're promoting those guys, you can't say a fucking word about Juul and what they're doing to the industry. Juul didn't come after the vaping industry. They just released their products to convenience stores. Convenience stores are the problem. Parents buying products for their kids. In a meeting we just had recently, talking about parents walking into corner stores and they're buying 15, 20 packs of Juul pods, give them to their kid, the kid takes them to school and sells them. It's no different than what a lot of us did in high school. Buy cartons of cigarettes, take them to school and sell the packs. We used to do that. Now parents are buying pods for their kids and the kids are taking them to school and selling them. It's part of a thing. It's a thing now. There's ways we could get around it if these companies could get involved and help us, which I think they will, because, Juul's in the process of joining CBA if they haven't already, which is something that we need, because from what I've been told, they've pledged resources, money, scientists, RCMP officers, their ID, age verification processes. They've pledged all that to help our industry out, because we don't have to like it. Juul's the vaping industry. They're part of our industry. We're part of their industry. They want us to stick around. We want them to stick around because we all profit off of vaping. So they're not trying to put anybody out of business. They're trying to, in Canada, they're trying to help us push back on the government. The U.S. is a lost cause, guys. Sorry. No point getting your panties in a bunch about what's happening in the U.S. The U.S. is fucked. Those guys have a long road ahead of them. They have a very corrupt government ahead of them. They have a lot of bad shit going on down there. And my heart breaks for those guys. I watch a select few, the same 10 to 15 guys over a population of fucking 300 million. The same 10 to 15 guys trying to save a fucking entire industry down there. And my heart breaks for them. I would love to go down there and help them, but my primary focus is Canada. Canada is the industry that I'm in. So I'm watching our government treat vaping differently. I'm watching our government take more cues from the UK than they are from the US, thankfully. So again, it's not Juul that's the problem. Everybody's going, fuck Juul, fuck Juul. I remember when Juul first came to Canada, I said fuck Juul. I've been saying fuck salt nicotine for a very long time. And everybody told me I'm stupid. Everybody told me I'm a fucking idiot. But here we are, a year later, a year after me and a few other people said Juul and salt nicks are going to destroy the industry. A year later, here we are, salt nicks are fucking the industry. And it's not just necessarily salt nicks. It's convenience stores selling them without checking ID and minors getting their hands on them. And parents buying them 10, 15 packs at a time to take them to school to sell. It's not Juul. Responsible packaging, age verification, all that stuff set up on their website. Juul is not the problem, in my opinion. So for people to sit there and say that Juul with their 50 milligram pods is fucking the industry while you're selling 30 ml bottles of 50 milligram nicotine in your store, it's not Juul's fault. You can't say their 50 milligram salt nic is worse than your 50 milligram salt nic. I have ideas as to how that should be limited. These companies like Juul and Stealth and all those guys should force stores to limit sales per customer to 5 packs of pods per customer per store. As a parent, if I was the asshole that was buying pods for my kids to sell at their school, I wouldn't go store to store to store to store to load my kid up for the week to sell pods off to their friends. I wouldn't fucking do it. I'm lazy. Most parents are tired after working all fucking day. They're not going store to store. So limit it to 5 packs of pods ounce per purchase. Limit it so that at convenience stores, there's only certain flavors, like tobacco and menthol at convenience stores only. Limit them to be 35 milligram at convenience stores, because kids like the 50 milligram because they like to get the little head rush. By the time they're not getting the head rush anymore, they're hooked on the nicotine, and then it becomes a whole problem. So what we need to do is limit the amount of nicotine you get at the store. Make it 35 at corner stores, make it 50 inside the vape shops. That's fine. Because in vape shops, if you look at the record, at least in Ontario, we brought it up, and out of 100 violations, 2 of them were vape shops. I mean, that's a good fucking record. So we shouldn't be penalized for that. I fully agree with that in all aspects. So if we can get the companies like Juul and Stealth and all those guys that sell, and Vape, that sell to corner stores, if we can get them to limit the amount per purchase, say 35 milligram max at the corner stores, and limit flavors that go to the corner stores. Those are 3 things that we could do to solve that youth uptake issue. Online sales are a big part of our industry. That shouldn't go anywhere as long as people are using proper age verification on either ordering or delivering or both. I think it should be both. That should be a thing, which most responsible vendors, and I can think of several off the top of my head, that are doing it already. Some aren't doing it, even though you have to now. Some aren't doing it. That specialty store classification that goes through Ontario should be Canada-wide. It should be everything. If you're a vape shop, you're a specialty store. Done. There's no other ways around that. That's just my opinion on that one as well. So there is ways to fix it. Going fuck Juul isn't the problem. If at any time you say fuck Juul and scroll through your Instagram and see Ride Squad, fuck off. Same with Candy King, One Hit Wonder, all the garbage juice out there, Cola Man. If you're promoting any of that garbage and you're saying fuck Juul, you're the problem. You're posting garbage while shitting on garbage. You're everything that's wrong with everything about this industry. But yeah, Juul's not the problem. They got responsible packaging. They released the product that people want. And I was in a discussion yesterday with a friend, and he said, people are getting hooked on nicotine, blah, blah, blah. Treat Juul like you treated cigarettes. When people want to come in and they want to quit smoking, you recommend a device, the Freebase, you get them off. And I'm not going to call it Freebase anymore. I'm going to call it traditional nicotine, because Freebase makes it sound like a bunch of crackheads, and we're not. We're not out in the back with a glass pipe fucking Freebase and nicotine. Just not a thing. So, traditional nicotine, we need to stop and start calling that as an industry now. Freebase nicotine. Somebody comes into your store and they want to quit smoking, all you got to do, you recommend the device, you recommend the nicotine, you get them off the cigarettes. Somebody comes into your store and they're hooked on the fucking Juul, treat that Juul like it's a cigarette. Freebase device. You have the expertise, you have the experience, you have the knowledge to get people off of the most addictive thing out there. Like everybody says, quitting smoking's harder than quitting heroin. So if we can get them off of smoking with traditional nicotine and old school devices, we can get them off Juul with traditional nicotine and old school devices. We're not losing flavors. The industry is evolving, it's growing up, it's getting bigger. We went from being a grassroots small industry to being a corporate business. It's what we are now. Much as we don't like it, the growing pains are hurting and all that, we don't have to like it. This is what we've done. We created a business and we pushed and we got bigger and we got bigger and we got noticed, and now we've been noticed. Juul isn't the problem, Stealth isn't the problem, Disc isn't the problem. All these pod systems are not the problem. Corner stores selling to minors is the majority of the problem. 50 milligram salt nic, not the problem. I hate it. I hate Juul. I hate 50 milligram nicotine. Not the problem. How we're reacting is a problem. This is stronger than this.
Well said, sir. I'm inclined to agree. It's really difficult to pin blame on one particular company or product, but that's clear that that changes are coming, right? Like, we have to fight for our flavors if it comes to that. But as it stands, we are still in business. We need to be proud and strong of that and remind people that we are here to make a difference. We are a vape community, and we're doing everything we can to keep vapes out of the hands of teens. And it's time the rest of the world that sold vape products did the same. If that can't happen, we need to create some new laws. Letting the epidemic and Juul's course of action bring us down? Why are we fighting with each other, right? It gets us nowhere. Guys, that's it for today. As always, we would love to hear from everybody. If you have something to say, send us a video. We want to hear it. We're here for you guys to voice your thoughts and opinions freely and propose great ideas for the future. All you have to do is send us a message, upload your video. That's it. It's that simple. Sometimes I'll post some ideas out beforehand, but I mean, comment below, subscribe to everything. Listen, we'll do a live feed soon sometime so we can get some dialogue back and forth. But until then, guys, don't forget to subscribe to your new favorite vape podcast, right? West Coast Clouds is your new vape podcast. So you're gonna hit subscribe. You're gonna share it with your fellow vapors. And until next time, vape on and vape strong. This is Nick from West Coast Clouds, guys, signing out. We'll see you next time. Welcome to the West Coast Clouds podcast. This is Nick, your host. This is the new vape podcast for vapors, where we bring you opinions, reviews, and industry news. You're listening to West Coast Clouds.